and repeat so that we can all hear what you are thinking. I guess one of the ways to maybe a more specific question to start with is, even though it is such a globally focused film, like I said before, like what struck you the most, or how were you able to relate? I think there's a lot of ways in which, even though you might not have ever been to those places or met those people, by putting a human face right on this incredibly massive global movement of people, sometimes it allows us to relate a little bit more closely to what we're seeing. So what did you guys think? What stood out to you? Yes.
It's just so tragic. There were so many people that were living lives where they were self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. Their lives were fine, and they were just thrown into countries where they don't know the language. They have no hope. Mm-hmm. The ones that wanted to get to Germany had these countries in between that they couldn't pass through to even get there. There were just so many stopping points you wonder.
Mm-hmm. Right, so for those, I know that it was hard for everybody to hear that. I'll try to pass the mic around, actually. His point, which is a great one, is that it's striking, right, how these people's lives were more or less normal, just like ours, right, at some point. And because of whatever circumstance erupted, literally sometimes, in their lives, whether that's violence of some sort or environmental issues or what have you, all the different steps that they had to take to kind of reach that new stability or new life, and a lot of them, as we've seen, aren't even close to making that happen, and are obviously facing, like you said, a lot of hurdles, walls, literally and figuratively, to get through before they get to that point. Definitely, very, very striking. What else? Yes.
I was just curious if, as I see, okay, thank you. I was just curious, besides sitting here feeling very, very helpless, given what I'm seeing on the screen, if there was any kind of worldwide coordination with the worldwide migration problem. I mean, Europe is having its problems, and we're having our problems, and is there any coordinated effort? Because I noticed there was one line in there that now this is the problem of Jordan and Lebanon, I forget the third one, but there were 3 countries that, and the guy said, Turkey, yeah. So somebody decided that those were going to be the 3 countries that were where the resettlement was going to take place, I guess. So who's doing is there any coordination going on worldwide?
Thank you. That's a great question. So, in terms of any kind of global response to the entirety of the situation, I think the short answer would be no, except that you could point to the UN, the High Commission for Refugees, as the governing body who has a lot of control, both in terms of recognizing groups of people as refugees. I don't know if you know or you caught it in the film, but just because you are displaced, just because you leave your home, it does not make you automatically a refugee. You have to actually apply to become a refugee through the UN, and you're granted that status, which gives you, as you saw in the film, some kind of international support and rights. And the UN also makes decisions about resettlement and where people are resettled to. But in terms of coordinating that globally, I think it's more of a country by country, or maybe, as you point out, small chunks of countries by countries kind of decision-making process in that way. Yes.
I just have a couple of initial reactions. One of them is I'm struck by how much all the different locations around the world feel very similar, and also how I really appreciate how this film brings it really home, how human everybody is. And I'm also really encouraged by all the helpers out there. I'm sure there are many people who are not in contact with helpers, but that there are so many people who are out there trying to help. Apparent in this film anyway. And
Right, in an organized way, like with the UN or these other kind of agencies, but also just communities, right, bonding together to tell people out. I think that a lot of the kind of those initial receiving communities, especially within the Mediterranean, those communities before the UN and other international bodies recognized the huge numbers, literally millions of people crossing the Mediterranean. Those communities definitely stepped up and provided that kind of initial support and welcome for liberty. Yes, in a really humane way. And to your point about kind of recognizing the humanity of everybody involved and the connections as humans that I think this film really makes us think about and feel. I love what the Princess of Jordan said. And I tried to write it down as I was watching it, but it was a little dark. But it was something about like you must hold on to your humanity, both for the refugees themselves, but also for the communities that receive them. Like it's important for both, kind of all parties involved to realize that shared humanity and see that, which I think is a really, really powerful statement to make.
I have a question about the filmmaker, Ai Weiwei. Is he doing this under the auspices of some organization? Is he doing it on his own? How long ago did this film come out? And has there been any change as a result of the film being out there for the rest of the world to see?
Great questions. And the only answer I personally know to that is that I think it was made in 2017.
It came out in 17. But
Yes.
was
So
filmed
made in the prior
16,
years.
17.
Do you know any more details about?
I don't know. I don't think it was under the auspice of any. I think it was just a story that he felt really needed to be told and something that he was particularly interested in. And yes, I mean, things have obviously changed since 2017, even since last year. There have been, new influxes of people from different areas, but still the main point and the main sort of themes of the movie still hold true.
Yes.
How widespread is the showing of this film going to be in the United States? Because it certainly has some eye-opening information in it.
That's another good question. I know that if you all want to share it with other people who weren't able to be here, it's available through Amazon Prime, like the video part of Amazon, so it's accessible that way.
We'll be showing it a second time this fall in the Portsmouth Seacoast area at the Portsmouth Public Library in September. But September 10th. So, but in terms of wider distribution, there is not, to my knowledge, a concerted, nationwide effort to put it out there. Except for.
Are you intending to contact school districts to see whether or not that will be in their budgets? To purchase the rights to show this?
That was not in our plans, but it's something we could certainly consider. We have our Academic World Quest, which is a global high school trivia challenge coming up on March 10th, so we can certainly talk to the teachers at that event.
Other comments or questions? I'll come back to you. I think you can project.
I'll try to project it, but it seems that this is going to be an increasing problem because increasingly, we have wars going on that's pretty obvious. There are also climate change issues and a variety of issues. It occurs to me that part of it is kind of a Malthusian problem, that we're trying to put more and more people into a finite space, and in fact maybe decreasing space. And does that contribute, or is that part of this refugee problem?
Definitely, and I'd encourage you, if you can, to come to the March 20th showing. The Spinote's arc is all about climate change and the refugee crisis that comes out of that. And Onote's art takes place in the Pacific, but there are things related to environmental change or climate change happening literally globally, including here in the United States, especially along in kind of Native Alaskan communities, and also in Louisiana, kind of along that coast. Coastal communities in a lot of different places actually are dealing with that. So yes, environmental change is a major contributing factor, and obviously I think will continue to perhaps become even more so. Yes.
I was struck by one still that talked about the increased number of walls, and I don't have the years or the numbers, but I looked at that and
1177.
Yeah, in 1981 there were, or 89 there were 11, and now there's 70.
Yeah.
2015.
So that screenshot just sort of struck me, and obviously I'm thinking of our southern border, and it's scary how it seems like a national or a natural response seems to be to build walls.
Yeah, does anyone want to respond to that? That statistic stood out to me the very first time I saw it too. Yes.
It made me wonder how to really adequately integrate these people into the various places that they go, how you establish economy, how you find out who can do what and for how much money. And I know that one of the problems they were having in Germany, even though Angela Merkel was so accepting in the beginning, is that it just sort of overdid Germany despite their best efforts, and cost her premiership, her prime ministership. And I was interested in that one little refugee camp that set up its own economy, but I mean, where are these people getting their water? Where are they even getting something to sell? I mean, how can they even weave something if they don't have sheep or they don't have cotton or something? I mean, how do you set up an economy in those, as far as the eye can see, refugee camps? Or are you going to send them to Paris? What are they going to do for work in Paris? I mean, it's a really overwhelming difficulty with so many people coming so fast.
Yes, and I spent the entire semester talking to my students about these exact questions. Walls, borders, can stem the flow, but not really, and it begs the question of, okay, are those borders or walls there to allow nations or countries or states to more slowly, bit by bit, prepare, get ready, evaluate, assess, come up with resources that can potentially help integrate? Some people would make that argument, others would say, perhaps not, perhaps that's not the way. Hold on one second.
Sorry.
Did you have
Can I just add one thing there?
Yeah.
A great resource, Southern New Hampshire University has started a refugee education online program. They're in 7 different countries right now with the goal of educating 50,000 refugees in refugee camps by the year 2020, so next year. And they're teaching them competency-based skills that they will be able to then use once they are resettled or do leave the refugee camp, so that if they do get resettled to Paris, they will have the skills necessary to take on jobs and be better prepared to contribute to the communities that they're resettled to.
And I'll just add to that and say that, first of all, the refugee camps, from the stories that I've heard in conversations that I've had with people, literally they can be 500,000 people, within this space. And so obviously those 500,000 people come with their own kind of skills and qualifications, and it's truly amazing at the resourcefulness of these camps to start schools or to kind of communally work toward making sure everybody is taken care of. But programs like that are incredibly needed. When people are resettled, just say the example that comes to mind are the Somali Bantus population, for one, who were resettled not only in New Hampshire but in Maine, and primarily they were farmers, agriculturalists, and so to come to an industrialized country where they're not going to be able to support themselves for the most part by farming, that is a huge leap, right? And it's a really valid question to take a hard look at the types of training or education or courses that are being offered and encouraged and kind of utilized in order to make sure that resettlement is successful as possible. I think those are really important questions to ask and to think about. And I know you guys have hands up too, so I will come up there in 1 second.
I'm thinking about several things I saw just today. Unemployment in New Hampshire, 2.4%, even following appliance repair van on the way into Concord. Big red letters, now hiring. We need more people in New Hampshire who are willing to work, and yet we're building a wall. Another interesting thing from the Concord Monitor, Chuck Douglas pointed out there's no way that you're going to build a wall through 800 miles of Texas. That's all privately owned land on the border. You'd have to buy out that private property. It's never going to happen. This fight over the wall is ridiculous. It's a political fight. It's not reality. I think of the faces of those children. They're so similar to the faces of children in schools I've worked in, and that they can still smile and play. It's amazing. And so I think they can make it if they have a chance. But you can't just take two people from another community, another culture, and plunk them down in the middle of a city in New Hampshire and hope that they're going to be integrated. They need their community. So we can't fix it. We can't put back together those buildings that are in rubble, those communities in rubble. Maybe it is possible to build communities that are at least better than the refugee camps. I hope we can.
Definitely, and from my own experiences with hearing stories and talking to people, it was honestly just this life-changing process for me. And to your point about kind of the resiliency and the capabilities, that is what strikes me. I always left my conversations thinking, wow, would I have been able to do that? Would I be able to survive? Would I have been able to take my husband and my 2 kids and go through what I just heard or what I just saw? And so, in my personal opinion, I think you are absolutely right, that people who have gone through what they've gone through and arrive here, they are capable. They are ready and they really want to. And you're also right that it takes a community, and it might not be their past community, but we, right, can become that kind of new community for them. Social networks are crucial in allowing people to kind of thrive and survive. So that's another thing that always has kind of stood out to me. Yes, you, and then in the back.
Is there anything that's on leaders or